Ladies and gentlemen, it is I, and it is Matt, and it is a guest. We are the Hoagie and Grinder show here, and we do have a special guest on today. Somebody I have a lot of respect for, somebody that has a very good knowledge of the game of hockey as well with the Edmonton Oilers. And you know what? He is going to be the guy where he is going to educate myself and Matt. And call us out when we're wrong. He's done that to me a few times. But yes, JT, I'm a hockey guy. You can find him on TikTok. I'm a hockey guy. He's got really good content. He dives pretty deep into some sensitive stuff, which we'll be getting into on the show today. So thanks a lot, JT, for taking the time to come on board here and do the show with us. I
Thanks
guess
so much for having me on.
Absolutely. I guess we're gonna start off with the obvious. There was a trade in oil country. Stuart Skinner is on his obviously he's out now. He's now part of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He went along with Kulak. We got in return, we had Tristan Jarry as well as Samuel Poulin. I just kind of wanted, well, before we get into this, actually, I guess this trip, well, I'm kind of going off a source that I don't even know if there's any credibility, but I was watching, what's his name there? Tom Gazzola. And I've heard you, JT, on your show there when people were asking you on your live what you thought about his comments about the leadership, and you kind of basically said, well, what kind of credibility does he have, right? Because he's not really part of the Oilers organization anymore. But I guess apparently his people said that from what he heard was that Stuart Skinner a couple weeks ago went up to Bowman and asked for a trade. And Tristan Jarry did the same thing in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I guess I just want your guys' thoughts on that. We'll start off with JT. Do you think that is this the answer, or do you think there's something else that's going to be coming along, or do you feel like we might have given up too much? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, yeah, I mean, first off, a lot of respect for Tom Mazzola. Spent a lot of time in Edmonton media, and big fan of his personally. But some of the reporting that came out that you mentioned about the leadership, conflicts within the locker room, I think it's hard to put that on one specific thing and not just kind of what we talk about, where you look at all the different problems that the Oilers have. And so the leadership is trying to address those problems. And I think one of the reports that came out at the same time as the Stuart Skinner requesting a trade rumor was that Calvin Pickard was rumored to be being sent down. And so the Oilers leadership group stepped in and said, we don't want Calvin Pickard to go down. We want Calvin Pickard to stay in the NHL. And so you look at kind of what management had to do in that moment. They had their hands a little bit tied. And so they looked at the productivity of the team over the past stretch, right? Like, I think they were fully content on the idea of waiting until after the new year, even after Christmas, just to see what happens over the next few games. They have those big games with Seattle and Winnipeg, and then they have that one game against Buffalo. And I think Stan Bowman just said, the time is now. We've got to do something. And what they did, yesterday, to me, it's a bit of a lateral move from Skinner to Jarry as far as the skill level goes. I watched that game in Toronto last night, and if you would have told me it was Stuart Skinner between the pipes, I would have believed you. Like, it just looked almost identical in style and productivity. So the give up though. I mean, the Oilers are sitting with, not a lot of draft picks, but nine picks in the next two drafts now. And so that fourth round pick, like those picks that they gave up yesterday, that is some level of depth that they want to take into the next couple of seasons. And so Stuart Skinner for Tristan Jarry, not really that big of a mover. Kulak, I understand, because Kulak was he was going to be the odd man out when Walman came back. You can't really do anything with Regula. So that made a little bit more sense. But then, bringing in Stastny to kind of, I don't know. It's all, Bowman's got to be some sort of, wizard genius for me to be able to kind of understand what he's doing, because it just didn't make a lot of sense to me yesterday. But at the same time, I don't think the Oilers are in a position where we need to see a lot of those changes in mass. It's fine to just make some of those minor changes. I think that's what it was, but the cost was a lot.
Right, but I think the other thing too, is what was I going to say? For me and the Kulak thing, I don't. I think he was going. I don't think he. I think he was going to get moved regardless because there was talks about him saying that he was going to test free agency,
Yeah.
and this coming up. This coming up next season, whatever, off season. So now they're saying, Matt, that the Spencer Stastny guy is basically a Kulak but younger. Has better lateral movement than Kulak, but he's a younger Kulak. Last night, like, how did you feel he played last night?
Well, I thought he come around pretty well. I mean, the kid hasn't played a whole bunch in the NHL. I mean, Brett Kulak's obviously a grizzled veteran. He played for, Montreal before he come to us. I really liked him in Montreal. And I really liked his game in Edmonton. Bowman's hands have to be tied when it comes to the no movement clauses. I mean, Darnell Nurse has made it abundantly clear he's not willing to waive his. And you're not going to send Evan Bouchard out of town, as much as it wouldn't hurt my feelings to see him move on. Matthias Ekholm's not going anywhere. Jake Wallman's not going anywhere. That's your core defenseman. So, I mean, you're right. Kulak was the odd man out, and I hope Stastny can find a good fit on our blue line. And I think Regula is the sacrificial lamb when Wallman comes back. Yeah, like, and I mean, I would 100% agree with JT. Is the lateral move in goalies. I think it was more a change of scenery for both of them. Everybody knows Stuart Skinner and his family got death threats in the playoffs last year, and I hack on Stuart Skinner a lot, or I did, and hey, maybe I will hack on him some more while he's in Pittsburgh. But I don't blame the guy. If he did indeed ask for a trade, if those rumors are true, it would make sense. Because, I mean, that dude took a lot of heat from the Edmonton media and the fans alike.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, JT, do you think that there might have been a chance where maybe Bowman went over to Ekholm and had a little chat with Ekholm about Stastny, because he got drafted in 2018 and we didn't get Ekholm until, what was it, 2022, 23? So he's been part of a couple of training camps with him. Plus, I think do you think do you think that conversation might have happened as well before they went with this kid? Because we did give up a 3rd round pick for him as well, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. I think it's entirely possible that there was conversations about his acumen, from people who knew him, who played with him. You got to think too. I mean, there's no shortage of guys who know each other,
Yeah.
in kind of the same way that Ekholm would probably know Stastny. But what I think is they looked at his fancies, they looked at his numbers, and they saw like a little bit of a. I mean, I think it's disrespectful to call him a Walmart Bouchard, but he certainly is sort of a same style player. Right, like he's a smaller guy, or he's a larger guy who can score. But then you look at what the Oilers really have and what they need, especially on the blue line. And I know I'm looking at this saying, do we really want to see another Oilers blue liner that can score a goal, when they need one, but
Yeah.
has a really hard time stopping the puck from getting into the net when they need one too. It just seems they're stacking the blue line with the same kind of player. And in my mind, they should be looking at more Jake Wallman types or, some more Ekholm types. But
Yeah.
that's just, they don't grow on trees, right? And so
Yeah.
I don't know if he's going to make that big of an impact. I think they're kind of swinging for the fences on trying to get another offensive D-man, because they know that, like, the worst case scenario, they're just going to have to score 7 goals every game. And, if Tristan Jarry doesn't work out, It's
Sure.
not that the Oilers can't win a Stanley Cup, because
Yeah.
I've heard the Oilers can't win a Stanley Cup with Stuart Skinner for 3 years, and they were 2 games away last year, 1 game away the year before. So, this is a unique situation, having 2 of the best players in the world who can score at will, it seems sometimes.
Well, lately it seems like the Oilers are scoring 7 goals every game. So it's
It's not a bad strategy.
I mean, it boils down to the Oilers of the '80s again. Is you're going to score 6, we're going to score 8. So,
But that's when you run into games against Colorado, and you
Yeah.
can't score 8 on Colorado, and they can certainly still score 8 on you.
Man, they lost 2
absolutely.
regular game. They lost 2 regulation games. That's it. 23-2.
Is that pace sustainable though? Is it?
JT,
Do they burn
we had
themselves
this
out
conversation.
by? Yeah, I don't think it is. I think they're peaking too early, right? I mean, they talk about that is a team that peaks too early and then stumbles into the playoffs and they're out first round. I mean, I think that may be Colorado this year.
Yeah, I think the one thing that they have, the other teams who are in that category, maybe that don't, like if you look at Winnipeg last year and some of these other teams who really have a dominant regular season, they've got 2 of the best players in the world on their squad. They've got McKinnon, they've got Makar. And and they do have goalies who are playing really well. Now that's the question mark. How consistently can their goaltending be through this stretch? The other thing that I think needs to be factored in on every conversation that happens this season is that this season is not a normal one. Like with the Olympic break, there's going to be a very strange sort of tenure to every bit of play, every schedule, every every player's personal goals. If you look at Colorado, you're thinking, some of these goaltenders that are looking at maybe playing for Team Canada, right? And so now you got a guy who's getting even more time playing in more pressure situations, where if you had runway with them in Colorado that was going to carry it through to the new year, now you're going to add that sort of extra few games or starts within the Olympic break, where they weren't prepared for that. So anything that we talk about with teams that are performing well that shouldn't be, the Anaheim Ducks, I think everybody's a little bit surprised by what they've been able to accomplish. And I will definitely say that it's a little bit personal between me and the Ducks. Like obviously, Jim Talbot pad was held. Like there's no question about that. But also, if you look at the teams that are performing well or who are struggling, who we kind of expected to perform better, the Florida Panthers. I think we'll probably see more of a normalization of that as the season progresses and as the Olympic breaks kind of comes through and players start coming back from injury and the schedule starts to level it out. The Oilers will not travel west of the Mississippi River for a game, east of the Mississippi River for a game in 2026. I mean, that means that they've played every single Eastern Conference game in the front half of the season. Like that's an absurd thing to even like conceptualize, that they won't go to New York, they won't go to Toronto, they won't go to Florida, they're going to stay in California, Arizona, Texas, and any like St. Louis, Minnesota for the remainder of the season after the Olympic break. So you got to think they're also going to spend a lot of time in Edmonton. And so anybody who saw the Oilers struggle to start the season, can't see the quotation marks, but struggle to start the season, like look at their back half of their schedule. They should be just fine. And other teams are in the same boat.
Yeah, I think that bodes well that they don't travel east again. I mean, me and Kev discussed that they're not prone to doing well on their eastern road swings, and I think staying in the same time zone, it's or similar time zone rather than that 2 or 3 hour jump ahead. I think you're right. That's gonna fare very well for them after the Olympic break.
Well, speaking about the Olympic break,
will be from the players, right? McDavid, potentially Hyman, Draisaitl. Like there's obviously going to be a lot of a cool down period of the pressure of being in the Olympics. McDavid being the face of Team Canada is obviously the thing. But then once that cool down, you can get back into hockey in a way that you're preparing for the playoffs. And nobody's doubting playoffs at Edmonton. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Olympics, we all been hearing this whole stadium debacle that's going on there now. They're saying that it's gonna get done on time, and now the Bowman or not Bowman, Daly and Bettman are saying that if the ice isn't safe or whatever, they're not going to send the players over. What are your guys' thoughts, Matt? Now I know you told me, McDavid kind of backed it up a little bit because he was asked that question yesterday after the game, I believe, or before the game about, if the ice, are you worried about the ice not being well or small? And he says, well, obviously we want to be able to play on an ice that's safe, but the size of it, he doesn't really care about.
Yeah.
Do you think that there'll be, we'll have some Olympic hockey when it comes to?
Well, I'm really hoping, as a fan of the international game, I'm really looking forward to this tournament, especially because it's the first time, we'll see Connor McDavid in the Olympics. And I understand the safety issue. As somebody who understands that these players are not just players, they're assets to the owners. You wouldn't want to send them if it's unsafe. And I can completely understand that. As a hockey fan, though, if it doesn't go, I'm going to be pissed. I'm going to be very, very upset because, they've known that they've had this since I think they won the bid in 2020 or something. So, I mean, they've had all this runway to build this arena and get it right. And I don't know if the pictures online are true, but like they've only got 1 out of the 4 walls up or something. And
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. So I don't know. I really hope it goes because I think it'll be an absolutely epic tournament, but I can completely understand why they wouldn't send them or allow them to go, I guess, as the the owners group and the NHLPA. So it would make sense if the ice is deemed unsafe.
Your thoughts, JT?
Yeah, I think this is virtually impossible that this wouldn't happen the way that it's supposed to. The Olympics are always so convoluted in nature. When you get the selection committee to pick a location, and then that location has like 4 or 5 years or whatever to get the money together to do all the things. They build all the buildings. The buildings always suck. The accommodations for the athletes always suck. There's always reporting that the city's dangerous, that they're bringing in more security, that they're doing this and doing that. And so this is just kind of a unexpected thing as far as I'm concerned. I remember in Sochi, there was just so many concerns about the safety of everybody who was going over there, the security of everybody. There was a lot of cyber attack threats and things that were going on. And nobody ever batted an eye at the idea of sending people to a place that was physically unsafe to even exist. So do I think that that's going to be a difficult thing for, Italy to figure out? Sure. But I don't think that there's any world where they don't figure it out. Plus, I think these players, any bark on the bite of the players to say like they don't want to play on a surface that's unsafe, for sure. Unsafe is not ideal. They're probably not going to be allowed to do that by the organizations or by the NHL or by the NHLPA. However, I do think that if there is it's a matter of, do the players care whether it's a smaller size rink or an Olympic size rink or a regular NHL size rink or what have you? These guys would play on a shitty rink if it meant representing their country. So, as long as it's safe for them, for their families, this is, as Matt mentioned, this is the first time that a lot of them will have an opportunity to even bring their families into it, because the last Olympics, where even some of these guys were, they had represented their team Canada, not as an athlete, but it was during COVID. And so there was still a lot of extra, restrictions on family and things too. So the Olympic Committee has done a great job, I think, of making sure that this is going to be an all-inclusive event and for all the athletes represented by all the countries. And NHL players will swallow a bit of pride and certainly take a little bit of a uncomfortable situation to represent their countries, I think.
Hello, everybody. This is Slapstick Decals and Stickers, a proud sponsor of the Hoagie and Grinder podcast. Get at us for your decals, stickers, banners, and more. You can reach us on Facebook or call us at 403-505-9693. Keep slapping.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I definitely am looking forward to that. It's going to be interesting how they're going to come up with the the roster. And let's talk a little bit about the roster. You know what? I think Matty Cakes. I think our boy. I think our little boy Evan Bouchard might make a trip down there. We're not saying he's going to be on the opening night roster, but I don't mind his play as of late. And he's gained some serious ground. Like, he's what now, JT? Is he not third or fourth in points for defensemen? He's
Third.
He might actually be in the pluses now, I think, instead
He
of
is.
being a negative 11 or whatever it was. But
I-
what do you guys see there for just the defense, for opening night for what would you like to see for we'll start off with we'll start off with the goaltending. Like, who do you guys think will be the starting goaltender?
Well,
Or who would you like it to be?
it's tough. I mean, Binnington to me seems like the lock for the starter. You look how great he played in the Four Nations, and I mean, he's a pressure goaltender. He seems to rise to the occasion, but he hasn't been all that great this year. And it's really, I don't know. I mean, does he turn it around with the greatest players in front of him, or I mean, there's so many good goaltenders out there right now you could put in. We talked about what's his name? Thompson? Logan Thompson. Yeah. And I mean, that's a legit contender for it. Unfortunately, I don't think Stuart Skinner's going to make the cut. It's really too bad.
Jesus.
But give me a break, Kev. I had to get a
man,
shot.
he's
in,
gone.
man.
Let him go. Okay.
I
I don't
can't.
want to hear you bitching about him anymore, man. Let him
I'm
go.
not
He's
bitching
gone.
about it.
You can't argue
I'm
with
not
Stuart.
bitching about it.
He's still bitching about Justin Schultz, for crying out loud.
Well, yeah, but that now, in fairness, I didn't bitch about Justin Schultz. I bitched about the way Justin Schultz was used wrong in Edmonton.
It's fair.
Anyway, I would say my lock for goaltender has to be Jordan Binnington. I would, just because he's proven himself in an international competition with the Maple Leaf on his chest. That's where I'd go with that.
Okay, well, that's fair. But there's, I guess, yeah, Bennington to me would be maybe be the right go. But you look at guys like, I don't know, do you think Darcy Kemper's kind of doing, like, should he be in the conversation, at least being part of the goalie tandem, or is it,
I think he should be in the conversation. Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, to me, there's an embarrassment of riches in Canada's goaltending conversation, but none of them as good as America's bottom candidate. Unfortunately, America's just got the better options as far as goaltenders go. But there's a lot of goalies that you could plug and play in Team Canada and could go on a crazy run. So I do think that Bennington's going to get a spot just because, as Matty mentioned, the history of having somebody who's got that success at an international level. But I could absolutely see Logan Thompson, Scott Wedgwood.
Yeah,
I could see Darcy Kemper. If you told me that the Pittsburgh Penguins went undefeated in the month of December, and by the end of the year, for the rest of the month of December, and by the end of the year, they're looking at Stuart Skinner, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Stuart Skinner is not he's not a conventional choice, but because they have to pick somebody who's going in hot,
that's true.
Tristan Jarry, if that happens with Edmonton, there's nobody who's off the table in my opinion right this second. Sam Montembeault, same kind of he's not going to get the playing time, so that's unfortunate for him that he's not going to see the ice as much as Powell, but I don't know that there's anybody. Aiden Hill, I think, is a fair lock as well because of the Stanley Cup. But if any of these guys drop, Carter Hart, I know we're going to talk about him a little bit.
Yeah, I don't want
but I don't think Carter Hart. I don't think that Carter Hart would be considered because of all the sort of the noise around it. But as far as goaltenders that are going into that selection process red hot, unfortunately, for my personal opinion, like for what I stand for, it's not my favorite thing to see Vegas doing well at all. Certainly not in this way. Um, but there's no guarantees that anybody would be off the table if they're playing well enough, and so
Well, I mean,
um, it's open, it's wide open.
I think you even have to take a look at the guys from down south there. I mean, Devin Cooley and and Wolf have been playing really good for the Flames. So
Well,
yeah, you're right.
Wolf's US, right?
Oh, is he US? Okay.
I think Wolf's
Yeah, he's
American.
American. Wolf's
Oh, he is.
American. Yeah.
But
Yeah, the
no, so
US they
go ahead.
definitely have the United States has way better goaltenders than Canada for the first time in a long time. I mean,
They may be stuck in a position of just choosing the best one and pick wrong. Like they might pick
That's true.
somebody who looks really good. But look at somebody like Jake Ottinger. Looks really good on paper everywhere until he plays the Oilers in the Western Conference Final. Like who's to say that doesn't happen in international level with any of these guys?
Well, you could
So
say the
that's why I
same thing for
lean towards.
Hellebuck.
Yeah, well, that's why I lean towards somebody like Binnington for Team Canada, or because there is that historical prowess and dominance. But there's really just the Team Canada's got to figure out defense, and Team USA, the embarrassment of riches that they have across the board. This is going to be a very tough series for anybody to beat them. But Canada has, of course, the ability to do it. They just have to be smart with their rosters.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, on D, when you look at the defensemen, it's, to me, it's probably going to be similar to what you saw in the Four Nations. Obviously, Petrangelo will not be there, but I mean, maybe with that eighth defenseman instead of Harley, maybe it's Bouchard. I don't know, but yeah, I think that's going to stay pretty close to the same. Do you agree, Matt?
I think so.
I mean, is
It's
Doughty back? Actually, is Doughty back from injury yet?
I don't know. I haven't caught a freaking Kings game in a while, so
I think he might be back, but I don't think he's going to be ready for Olympic play. I
No.
kind of suspected in the early season that was going to be the thing that happened, and it just doesn't look like that's the case anymore.
Yeah.
I wonder if he gets slotted in a deep roster spot, maybe an 8, if he's healthy, just because of his experience there.
Yeah.
Yeah, possibly.
I mean, I would absolutely. I think Drew Doughty is one of the best leaders in the game, and I mean, he obviously is a weapon that LA has used for forever. It seems like, and yeah, I think he could be definitely in the conversation to go.
And then do you think they, maybe the one change that might happen could be you'll see Taves there with a good old Makar? Because I don't think Taves was there on the Four Nations, but
The Bond Taves. See, the familiarity between Taves and Makar, that could go a long ways on a first or second pairing in that. I mean, in international play, that could go a long ways just because they play with each other constantly. They're, they know where they're going to be. The chemistry doesn't have to develop. It's already there. And it's not a bad suggestion to have that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Especially with how hot they are right now.
They did play together in the Four Nations too. McHale and
they did. Okay.
Devin Taves and Makar were on a pair together, and that was the dominant pair. Also, Morrissey and Parayko was really good too. And now I don't know if that's still something we see with what either one of those guys have done. But historically, you do have to kind of see the game as two separate entities. The international level and the playing on a big stage like the Four Nations and the Olympics, there is value in that. That's why what we're talking about with Binnington, certainly not having the best year in St. Louis, but he'll probably get the nod because of his experience there. I think there's also some skaters that are going to get that same level. Doughty might be one of those guys. If Doughty's healthy and if Doughty's ready to go in and play at his full pace, then yeah. But if he's still in recovery, that might be a bit of a challenge. He's supposed to come back here in the next few weeks, though.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. I think, when we're talking about familiar guys that play with each other in the National Hockey League to be on the Olympic roster, JT, myself, and Matt were having this conversation in our last episode about if you had to choose between a Wilson and a Hyman, who would you take? I said take Hyman because he's played alongside McDavid. Matt was kind of up in the air. He didn't. Part of him was like, yeah, Hyman, I get it, but Wilson brings these intangibles. What are your thoughts? Like, if it came down for one spot and it's either those two, one of those two, who are you picking?
I think I would probably go with Hyman just because the game is different in the Olympics, and I don't even think it'll be the same as what we saw in the Four Nations. You're not gonna. I don't believe you're gonna see 4 fights right off the bat in the Olympics.
Oh,
It's
you
just
can't.
not
I don't
something.
think you can fight in the
No.
Olympic.
You
Yeah,
can't.
like I don't.
Immediate
I don't think
ejection.
you
Yeah.
typically have the ability to the goal to win is a gold medal while you're not playing, right? So,
Yeah.
if you're out from fighting, then you're not going to see those 4 fights. Tom, that I think translates to a lot of what that rivalry was concocted as. So Tom Wilson, as interesting as he is as a player and talented as a player he is, I think Zach Hyman gets the Chris Kunitz a little bit,
Yeah.
having McDavid there, and Hyman I think is a little bit more of a proven player too, as far as his ability to drive on his own and without McDavid on the ice. Zach Hyman is going to work hard for anybody who asks him to, and he's never going to stop skating, and he's never going to, he's going to forecheck, he's going to get back, he's going to try and make plays. Wilson's a great player too, but if it's between those two guys, and I'm looking at, how do you build this roster out? It's really easy to just stack the top depth and say you put, Sidney Crosby, McDavid, and Makar on one line, or McKinnon on one line, but that's not what's going to happen. They're gonna mix it up so that they get some of that balanced out. And what better way to do that than to put one of your last guys sitting next to a guy who he scores, 7 goals in a game with, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the approach that I would take. I'm a little biased as obviously an Oilers fan, but I got the matching Gretz behind me. I just realized, Maddie.
I love it. Love it.
So the other thing too is, when you look at the forward line, do you see some similarities from the Four Nations to be there? Like, obviously the McDavid and the McKinnon and Sidney Crosby, those guys are in for locks. But do you see like a Sam Bennett making it, or Reinhart, maybe a Marchand? Just naming Florida players apparently, but like those guys, do you see, do you see a Seth Jarvis making the team? Or do you think they're gonna probably, like, if it was you, like, would you change some of that?
If you ask me, I would say one thing to consider with Team Canada is there is a lot of young talent that you typically wouldn't consider for the Olympics, but you almost have to, like, they're making it so hard. They're making it so difficult to say, like, Macklin Celebrini doesn't deserve a spot. And even going back to the defense, Matthew Schaefer, like how hard is it to say no to Matthew Schaefer right now? So there's a lot of the young guys that I think that historically it's worked out where McDavid, he didn't get to go to the Olympics because there wasn't an Olympics, right? And the robbery that was to not see Connor McDavid on the international stage at that level. Macklin Celebrini is he's no joke. Connor Bedard is no joke. These guys are going to be the future stars of the NHL. So you do, I think, in my opinion, you do want to showcase them. You want to forecast their Olympic production as early on as you can. You want to see these guys win 4 gold medals. You don't want to see them win 3 because they put Sam Bennett in because he, or Brad Marchand, an aging Brad Marchand, who again, same style of play. Like what does that do in the Olympics? I think it adds something. Brad Marchand might not be the best example because I think he does bring some level of leadership and just experience to the game. But this is going to be a young team, in my opinion. It's not Sochi. It's not, the last Olympics that the NHL players were in, where they were fit, square pegging round hole some of the veterans just to make the argument that veterans deserve some sort of recognition. McDavid he's the veteran here, and so they should definitely make McDavid, McKinnon, like the other guys that are older than that are going to be they're the geezers. They're not leading this team, So what better way to communicate to these young guys than having that leadership answer to them?
So you're saying Sidney Crosby is a geezer now?
Sidney Crosby is absolutely a geezer. Yeah,
He is.
But the difference between Sidney Crosby and those guys is Sidney Crosby, I think, will be the first to admit that, and the level of respect that he will get from the guys in the locker room.
Yeah,
I don't believe that he'll be the voice that's telling them they need to practice harder. I think he'll bring some experience to the game, to the Olympic process that they appreciate. But when it comes to making moves on the ice, McDavid and McKinnon are right there, and you can't ignore that, even as Sidney Crosby.
Well, if they are going to be looking at, some of these young guys, like you're saying, JT, I hope that whatever happened to Connor Bedard isn't as serious as it looked when he got when what's his name there cross-checked him in the face-off circle.
Braden Shen.
Yeah, Braden Shen. Yeah, it didn't look good. Like maybe it looked worse than it is. I know that they said they did an MRI, either it was yesterday or today, but they're not. All I know is he's not going on the road trip with them when they go and hit the road. We're talking a little bit about the Olympics, and I'm going to kind of segue into another kind of international, if you will, tournament. JT, you have put a lot of content out in regards to the 2018 World Juniors sexual assault case, and I know myself and Matt agree 110% with everything that you're saying. You and I have even actually had a chat because you had mentioned in one of your videos about, not listening to, the brass, not listening to their fan base and whatnot. And you and I talked about like Oilers are kind of in the same boat. I mean, we didn't want Jake Virtanen to have a PTO, and he got one. And but Matt, a little bit about Matt that you probably don't. Well, obviously you don't know, but Matt, when he was younger, he played at a high level in hockey. He actually got to the juniors and got an invite to try out for the Red Deer Rebels, and unfortunately got injured, and it's one of those injuries you can't get back. So he when we were talking about this situation in our first episode, Matt, I'm going to need you to kind of explain this, but when you are it doesn't matter if you're 16, 17 years old, when you're playing at that level, you got to conduct yourself a certain way. You want to elaborate more on what you were talking about then, Matt?
Well, so the way that, when specifically if you get invited to a sanctioned Team Canada sanctioned event, it was the same thing with any of our teams. But, obviously Team Canada is bigger than just a junior B or a midget AAA or AA team. But my coaches, my parents as well, really stress that, you're always representing that team whenever you are. And it's no different with your job. It's no different. You're a representation of the people that employ you or draft you or whatever. And, the easiest thing that those players could have done to avoid all of this crap would have been to just not put themselves in that situation in the first place. And when you, and I'm sure Hockey Canada talks about this, like any of the, I guess, camps or invites or anything I went to, they all talked about that, is you're now representing this and you're representing us when you're out there, whether you're playing, whether you're sitting in the stands eating popcorn, whether you're hurt, whether you're walking to and from the bus after the game. You represent us, so you had better conduct yourself with the utmost of intelligence and, basically don't be a piece of shit human. And for these guys to have put themselves in that scenario, just the opportunity for that scenario to come up, whether, like I say, whether the allegations are true or not, it doesn't matter. But to put themselves in the scenario to have the allegations levied against them, they were done from the start. And had they just, finish practice, go to dinner, go up to your room, lock the door, and watch TV, that would have solved all their problems. It really would have. And they should. I mean, I had friends who played for the Rebels and a few other junior teams. And the stuff that the stories that they told me about what, they'd be leaving a rink in, say, Moose Jaw on the team bus. And obviously the team bus has the name plastered all over the side of it. And there's carloads and carloads of girls, flashing them and waving them down, trying to get them to stop. And for whatever reason, they didn't put themselves in the situation because they conducted themselves professionally. And in my humble opinion, these players did not conduct themselves professionally because they put themselves in that scenario. And, back to the Olympic team with Carter Hart, I fully agree that Team Canada should wipe their hands of him. Even if he's going in there red hot and not, he's shut out every game from now until the Olympic break, Team Canada shouldn't even give him a look, because he did not conduct himself as a professional for that maple leaf on that jersey, period.
Well, I don't, I got 2 daughters, so, and I've been through this scenario with them, so I have a zero tolerance for it. As far as I'm concerned, they, I think, JT, you were talking about, now Cal Foote has got an opportunity to play in the AHL. They should do what Virtanen did and just go to the KHL. That's where, just get out of here. You guys don't deserve opportunities, as far as I'm concerned. You deserve, get another job or whatever, right? Like, it's, and for it to stretch out for how long it did. Like, this wasn't just them going into a couple court dates and then them overturning it because the girl was, lying or whatever. No, this went on for a very long time. So, my heart goes out to her. And I also think, and don't jump at me on this, but I also feel like, and I'm not going to get too involved into it, but I feel like her legal team kind of, they could have maybe, I don't know. I think they fumbled in some areas there a little bit. But JT, I've seen your videos over and over again, and I couldn't agree more with you. Do you want to just maybe, like, tell us what you kind of hope is going to happen here? Like, these guys never, I mean, Carter Hart now is playing in the NHL.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what does his teammates think of him, right? Like, maybe it's time to get a new profession.
Well, I think there's two separate conversations that have to take place here. First is what Maddie's talking about, which is if there's something that's going on at a tournament, at a World Junior Championship, at a Hockey Canada level, and there's some level of event you want to represent yourself with decorum, with professionalism. These guys did not do that. And I think I don't have to wonder if they didn't do that. I know based on the words that they use that they did not do that. And so the second question in that becomes, is that disrespectful enough for the fan or for the person who has an opinion, to say they don't deserve another chance? I think from our conversations, my tolerance is very low for it because I have a son, and I hope that my son is good enough to play hockey for, at a high level. And if he does get invited to a Team Canada event, or if he chooses Team USA because he has that option being born in the States, that he does so with the most respectful and leadership driven purpose that he can bring with it. And so if he's ever in that position, I want him to know where his dad stands on it, where, people who his dad, is interacting with, and who I think there's a lot of mutual respect for, believe it to be. I want to get away from the hockey player Bible, and I want to get more towards, the good person before you're a good player contingents, because that's becoming more of a standard thing in society, where you have these things, but there's still the culture of youth hockey in a lot of ways can still take some lessons from that. The second conversation here is whether or not what was alleged in this case actually happened that way, whether or not they've done something actually criminal. And if you believe that they've done something criminal, then of course your mentality and your belief should be that they should not be playing hockey. They should probably be in prison. And so, it's such an extreme jump, and people will defend one way or another the opinions that they share based on what of the two questions they're answering and what their answer to those two questions are. So if I post a video and I talk about how important it is to conduct yourself with grace and decorum and professionalism, I'll get people who respond by saying, "Oh, well, they were innocent." It's like, well, that's not even I'm not even talking about that. Or if I say, these guys were in a courtroom because they did something probably illegal, and then the response is, well, they were acquitted, innocent until proven guilty, and then it just goes into a whole other thing. So the moving of the goalposts on this whole issue, I think, is indicative of the fact that there's a larger systemic problem, and it's not just hockey, it's society. It's when it comes to specifically powerful men and vulnerable women in this case. And I want to be very clear, as three men sitting here talking about this, that I don't pretend or want to be the expert on this subject, because I think there's a lot of people in my comment section who can speak much more to this than I can. I will say that I do have a sister who has gone through something like this. I know people who have gone through this kind of thing, and I have, in this community that has been sort of presented to me, I have interacted with people who have a lot of these stories, who have shared these stories, and brave enough to not just help me understand that empathy that I already have and deepen that, but also educate me on some things that I may not understand. So I am certainly learning through all of this, and I think the most important thing we can do in this issue as men is to hold other men accountable to the things that they say around these topics, but also make sure that the vocal majority of women who have an opinion about this, that we listen to them as the priority. And that's what I think these organizations are not doing. And the organizations are failing to do this at a time when the female viewership of hockey is being grown on so many levels, whether it's because of novels, whether it's because of, the PWHL, whether it's because of shows on television, whatever it is. This is an organic growth that they should be 100% embracing and doing something responsibly with. And they still don't have a policy. They don't have a domestic violence or a domestic abuse policy as a league that says when something like this happens, X, Y, Z, this is the result. And other leagues, every other major sports league in America does, and North America does. So there's a ton of things that we can fight for, that people can do to try to push positive change. But the number one thing we have to do is we have to acknowledge that this is not a hockey problem. This is not a World Junior Canada problem. First, this is a society problem, that we have to start believing women, and we have to look at numbers, and we have to look at statistics, and we have to say, when somebody says something happens, it is far more likely, it is far more almost factually accurate that it happened in a way that she's describing, as opposed to she is somebody who is going to the police telling a lie for a motivation that isn't clear. And so when we talk this specific one, the details, I don't need to get into it. They're well out there. But with me specifically saying, I believe EM, I believe the victim in this scenario, because I don't see a lot of any logic behind the stories that are being told in the courtroom, the testimony from the people there was 8 or 9 people in the room, and I still have no clear picture of what happened, because the 9 people had different variations of their own story, and never one of them apologized for being in that position in the first place. Never one of them apologized for her feeling like they were in that position. One of them sent text messages talking about how she did appear to be uncomfortable, that she did seem to be crying, that she did seem to be disappointed or not having the time that they're alleging that she did. And those text messages were excluded from the jury because of, whatever the court had ruled on, which of course the jury then ended up getting tossed, and the judge that made that ruling was the one who laid down the verdict. So
You're
a
talking
judge that
about
was defensive attorney at one point.
You're probably talking about the Dylan Dubé part of that, eh? Yeah.
Yes.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I've been through this with both of my daughters, and I just it's very, I don't know. I love my kids, right? And I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you 110%, man. Well,
It's unfortunate that the Vegas Golden Knights specifically started this, right? And when we go back into the offseason and we look at Kevin Weeks reporting that Carter Hart was being, the tires were kicked by the Oilers. And I can tell you right now, I never believed that for a second. There's not a shot that Stan Bowman, a disgraced general manager from Chicago, from his time that happened there with Cal Beach, would be the first general manager to take a look at any one of those 5 players and say that. But I do think that rumor was started by people within Edmonton, who Carter Hart is from Edmonton, because they believed that there was a shot that he still had a chance to play in the NHL. And it wasn't long after that NHL said, hey, we have to make a ruling on this. We're going to suspend these guys until December 1st. And then other teams said, okay, we'll see what happens next. And Vegas, being the team that they are, who's surprised that Vegas was the first to do it? But then seeing the level of nepotism and sort of favoritism to bring in guys who were not even playing in the NHL, when we're speaking about Dylan Dubé or Cal Foote, excuse me. These guys were in the minor league when this shook out and they were released by their teams. So the fact that they're getting another shot in the AHL just to come in on an AHL basis, it speaks to more of the internal toxicity and the necrotic nature of what exactly is happening at the conversation level around this issue, because you just know around dinner tables with these powerful men who run hockey teams and general manager, assistant general manager for the GM for the Hurricanes is also for the team that signed Cal Foote. That's not what's being talked about, is the importance of bleeping women. It's not talked about the importance of presenting themselves positively to their women audience, the women in the fans. It's talked about how do we sort of make this sound like it's not a big deal. How do we downplay this? Carter Hart, noticed when he first came back to the East Coast, had this mysterious injury that popped up, and he was not available for media. And then Vegas somehow made him unavailable for media as a backup goaltender in the game against Philadelphia. I mean, this is not illegal. This is not a part of the rules that should have been available. And so Vegas is doing everything they possibly can to sweep all of this under the rug as deep as they can. And they're pulling out all the stops, and the NHL is not doing enough.
Yeah, no,
I'd agree. I'd agree.
I see what I mean, Matt? This JT's like on a different level.
Yeah,
man.
I've watched every single one of his videos, Kev. I've watched every one of his videos, and I couldn't agree more. Same thing, man. There's a ton of women in my life that have been affected by this, and honestly, I was naive to it until I was in my early 30s. But yeah, it is truly a societal problem, and the sport that I love with all my heart is like JT said, it is a culture that needs to be torn down and destroyed and rebuilt, especially if they are trying to expand the game through the organic growth of women. Yeah. Because it's just terrible that they can even be considered to have another shot. Yeah, it's frustrating. Let me tell you.
Hello, everybody. This is Slapstick Decals and Stickers, a proud sponsor of the Hoagie and Grinder podcast. Get at us for your decals, stickers, banners, and more. You can reach us on Facebook or call us at 403-505-9693. Keep slapping.
Frustrating.
I I have a hot take, and this is good. People are going to hate this, and that's fine. I don't really care. I don't think we're more than 5 or 6 years away from a woman playing in the NHL. The way that the PWHL is going, we're going to see the Olympics here in the next few months. We're going to see the level of compete that these women are bringing to the table. Like, there's no doubt in my mind, as the NHL game gets safer and as there's more of an understanding of, and people will make the argument, what about hitting? Watch the PWHL. Watch how vicious these gals are with each other. Like, they hit. It's not a violent. It's as violent as any level of hockey you'll find. But because of the fact that they're also super talented and super skilled, especially goaltenders. I don't think it's crazy to think that, and we've seen, sort of women in the NHL in a goaltending capacity as far as e-bugs and things like that. But I think a roster player, woman in the NHL is not as far off as people would believe. And so in order for that to be a thing that can happen, there has to be a level of appreciation for all of what we're talking about before we can get there. And so the only reason it may not happen is because it doesn't work out that way, because there is still a sort of a boys club mentality that keeps that from happening. But it's, when you look at the comment section of some of my videos and some of the similar videos, and it's an understanding thing. And I think it's important, if anybody's watching this video who is doubting what we're talking about right now, as a man, as somebody who has lived their life, in a way that they think is responsible and respectful to women, like, 2 things. Number 1, talk to somebody who you appreciate, you love, you respect, your mother, your sister, somebody who's in your life who this might be affecting a little bit more directly than you, and not in a way to get them to do more work, because it's not their job to explain this to you, but just listen. Take a breath for a second and just say your opinion is open for discussion. Your take on this, because like Matt, at one point I was sort of off on this. I thought that nothing was as serious as it sounded. To be honest, when Jake Virtanen happened, I didn't understand what the big deal was, and that wasn't that long ago, right? So it's taken me within the last few years, to understand just how systemic and problematic this culture can be in this specific issue. But I think what it also lends to is the fact that men who have this conversation with people and they defend the actions of these players as, type of gods or deities or whatever you want to call it, part of that comes from an internal projection of the fact that they've been in a position personally where they've maybe acted or conducted themselves in a way that is similar, and is sort of that wonder, would this be called out as this kind of behavior that's being talked about? And I don't think men should be afraid of that, because progress, like learning that and understanding that, is how we don't do it in the future. But I do think it's important to take a look in the mirror and make sure that all of the behavior that these guys who are defending these players, like, if this is something that you're defending because you think that you personally have done something, you got to own up to that. You got to get past that, because growth is important and society has to grow before we can change. Nobody should hold that against you, especially if it's something that, is sort of moved past. Like, you're the only person that can really resonate with that.
Yeah. No, you're very, 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 very correct. Well, just, we're just going to kind of go into to this other topic I kind of wanted to talk to the both of you guys about. The Oilers have been looking decent as of late. Out of a possible 6 points, they got 5. Almost looked like the Buffalo game kind of was going to go a different direction. I actually ended up turning that game off, and then I come back, then I wake up the next day, and I'm like, oh my God, they got it to overtime? Wow. But we're obviously going to be seeing some things happen here once if we ever do get even remotely close to being healthy, getting Wallman back, get Kapanen back, or Roslovic back, Philp, Clattenburg. Listen, guys, obviously we're going to have some cap, restrictions here where we're kind of like playing with change in our pocket right now. What do you guys see happening? Like, what kind of, are there going to be trades? Obviously, maybe some players waived. I wouldn't mind seeing this, Mangiapane gets waived, because God, he's just, I don't like him. I'm sorry. I don't like his play as of late, right? But like, what do you guys think you're going to see? Like, what kind of changes you're going to see to get us back to being cap compliant? Any one of you can start.
I'll defer. I was just
That's
yapping
gonna-
for a minute there.
That's going to be tough. Roslovic comes back. We got to free up 1.5 for him. Kapanen's 1.3. I mean, you could make that gap just by waiving Mangiapane. He's a 3.6.
Now, we did
Clattenburg-
get some cap space back from Kulak, did we not?
Yeah, as of right now, we only have 934,000.
Oh, okay.
So we could get Clattenburg or Philp back under cap currently, but you're looking, and I mean, you got to remember you got Wallman in there too. You gotta fit in, and he's a 3-4. So, I mean, I think Regula is going to be the sacrificial lamb, as it were, for when Wallman comes back. I hate to say it. I think Max Jones goes back down. I think Tomaszek might be sent down. Mangiapane, they gotta do something with him. I mean, he hasn't panned out the way we'd hoped, obviously. So you might see him waived. He's got a no trade clause right now, but I believe they can waive him anyway. I doubt he'll get picked up. And that would free us up enough to get Roslovic and Kapanen back. But you're still short for Clattenburg and Philp. I mean, Lazar could go. He can change out for Philp. I don't think you're going to see much in the way of anybody really shuffling in our top 6. Frederick may or may not be. Well, no, he's got a no movement clause. Sorry, I don't think he can be. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's figuring out the numbers is going to be just terrible if you get Roslovic back and Kapanen back at the same time. I mean, Kapanen and Wallman are both LTIR now, so I would assume we're not going to see them for a while, at the very least the new year. Yeah, tough call. I mean, there's a lot of pieces in that bottom 6 that could be shuffled around.
And
But
the other thing too is, like, we were talking about waiving Mangiapane. I mean, when you're not playing well, nobody's going to take you. Look what happened with Dumba. Dumba hasn't been playing very well. He's 7.5 million cap hit, and he cleared waivers now in the AHL. So I think, if it was me, I'd be looking to see about waiving him. I mean, you got to remember, during the offseason, it was either Roslovic or it was Mangiapane, right? I think they were trying to go for Roslovic first, and then it didn't happen. And then Roslovic maybe, has nothing to do with the Oilers, but I know he ended up letting go his agent, got another agent. And now so the Oilers go to plan B and go after Mangiapane to get him. But now you got Roslovic, because he decides to come back and he takes, like, I think half of what he was wanting. And as of January 1st, he's eligible for an extension due to the constrictions of his contract. So, I don't know. I think waiving, to me, I think there's going to be some waves. I think Tomaszek, yeah, you're right. Regula, I don't want to lose Regula either. Man, it's how do you make it work and not lose anybody that you don't want to lose?
Yeah, I don't see Mangiapane getting moved or released or waived. I think the leadership wants Mangiapane in the locker room. I think they made that clear in the offseason when they lobbied to sign him. He has some skill. Like, he's not playing as well as I think people hoped he would, but the Oilers roster hasn't really been what it could be, right? Like, they've got to get some level of chemistry built out. I just don't think Mangiapane, as off as he's been, I don't think they're going to make that decision to send him down. So my most likely moves that I could see, Matthias Janmark getting traded is almost a certified guarantee, in my opinion, at some point this year. And he's playing pretty well as a bottom six guy right now. There's going to be 10 teams that he can say he doesn't want to get traded to, but then I think there'll probably be somebody out there who takes the flyer on him. Plus, the Oilers need to get some of those draft capital back. They've got to look at maybe trading Ty Emberson for one of those picks as well. Max Jones, David Tomasic, Curtis Lazar. As much as I hate to say it, because I really have like a fatherly affinity for the kid Connor Clattenburg. Like, I think those guys probably go down. Just if not forever, but just enough time to shuffle some paperwork around. Noah Philp, he's on LTIR. When he comes back, where does he fit in on the lineup? Right. Yeah. Like, I think that's another part of the issue with these bottom six guys who are coming back from injury. Do they have a spot if the Oilers are playing well? You know, he can certainly be a plug and play, but is he a guy that needs to stay, or can he put on waivers? And is anybody going to take a flyer on it? I don't think so. Then you got the D situation. Jake Walman. I'm concerned about Jake Walman. I'm concerned about the narrative changing the way that it has. I think that there is a Clefbaum size apprehension anytime you hear something that doesn't make sense from an injury recovery for Oilers fans. I think reasonably so. But Jake Walman, should he come back in the new year, the D, I think you just got to look at Ty Emberson. Riley Stillman is still under contract. Get some of those pieces moved out. Regula is a plug and play for Ty Emberson in my mind. Yeah, I don't think he brings enough to the table to justify 1.3 when Regula is making half that. So Curtis Lazar is another one that you could probably send down and bring up at will, because nobody's going to do a lot with. I mentioned Max Jones, and maybe there is a world where a player that's out on the Oilers that's not getting time that might have that clause, like an Adam Henrique. I don't see that happening. I think Rico's an important piece of the team too, but the $3 million is weighing heavy for a guy who plays in the fourth line. So, there's some options there as far as shuffling paperwork, but it's going to use a lot of the minors and the depth that's down there. And like I said, I think getting some of those draft picks is a pretty big priority for the Oilers, because they just don't have you can't go out and win a Stanley Cup in 2025 and then go into 2026 with no depth development plan. And the Chicago Blackhawks and the LA Kings of the elite odds will tell you, like, that's not a bold strategy. It's a dumb strategy. So Bowman was a part of that team. He knows that. He's got to be looking at a potential to get some of that capital back into the mix with some of the players that are potentially on the board for a trade. Matthias Janmark, I think, is all but gone. When is a matter? It's a matter of when, not if.
I don't, and even that, I don't really like it too much, because, like, you know, on the penalty kill, like on the special teams, he's decent on the penalty kill. That's I don't know.
It's hard to trade guys who aren't good, right, Kev? Like, that's the problem. It's hard to get a lot of people interested in somebody who's not playing well. And Janmark is nothing against him. I think his usage versus what he gets paid, because of the same kind of challenging situation, having the same kind of player.
Yeah,
you know, it's and Dallas has already shown interest in him. I could see Matthias Janmark being back on the Stars before
going back to the Stars. Yeah. Well, now that they got Gauly, I think Gauly was his coach when he was in Dallas. I could be wrong, but I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. I know, you know, going back to that, you know, the beginning of the show when we were talking about the trade, the one thing that scared me with the Tristan Jarry is how injury prone he is. And when he got that puck to the collarbone and then he had to take that kind of like 30-second timeout, I'm like, oh, there we go. Well, thank God he went back into the net. But I get a little. I feel like anytime when he's checking something, I get a little anxious, or my anxiety goes up, because it's like, oh man, please don't be hurt. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they're gonna massage everything out. I know that on the list of topics, I don't know if we'll be able to get into everything, but I do want to talk about Vasily Podkozin. I do want to talk about that second line. Vasily Podkozin.
One more point, Cal. I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to make one more point about goaltending specifically.
Yeah.
Do we see a little bit of a similarity here? Now that we have Tristan Jarry, he's starting for the Oilers in net, backed up by by Calvin Pickard. Jack Campbell was in that position as a starter. He had to be. What if Connor Ingram has to come in at any time, and he plays so well that he takes Calvin Pickard's job, and then he's sitting there playing better than Jarry, and they have to be forced to play Jarry just like they were forced to play Campbell? Like, this is just cyclical Oilers bullshit.
Yeah.
And we're putting and I'm not saying Ingram is that good of a player, but the fact that they didn't even bring him up to look at it before making this deal specifically is that's a mind-boggling piece to me, that they could have had a little bit more of a wiggle room, because that contract is creating the challenges that we're talking about right now, and it costs a 3rd-round pick. So
I know, and to what you're saying, we're just trading off these draft capital, right? How is Ingram doing in Bakersfield? Has he gotten better, or does anybody know? Like, the last time I checked, he wasn't doing all that well, and that was about a month ago. I think he had like a 3.28 goals against, and I know that right now it's funny because Quinn Hudson and Ike Howard are just tearing it up down there.
Yeah.
And
Quinn Hudson is a name that we'll see in Edmonton. And I think Ty Emberson, Regula, like whatever we're talking about sending down or sending out of the roster, Hudson is the next in line. And that will be a forever move, in my opinion.
Well, and you know who Hudson and Howard remind me of? They're both American, right? So it reminds me of the Doug Weight and Bill Guerin. Kind of, they were both fast. They were both kind of, had hands, right? But anyways, yeah, no, I was
856 for Connor right now.
It is, eh? Oh, shit.
It's not good, but just the fact that you could bring him up, you could give him a look, you could send him in with Stuart Skinner and just see what happens. And they elected to instead add $2.5 million to the cap on a guy who probably is about the same as the guy you got right now, because this weird narrative that you can't win a Stanley Cup with Stuart Skinner. Stuart Skinner is going to win a Vezina Trophy next year. Like, we know that's going to happen, right? We got to be prepared as Oilers fans to swallow that. Stuart Skinner will be a finalist at the very least for a Vezina Trophy next year. So
I hope he does.
I do too.
I hope he does well. I think Stu's a pretty good guy. The way he played pissed me off quite a few times.
Yeah, Devin Dubnyk. I know I've had the same conversation about him before. There's Cam Talbot. What? Sorry, I'm gonna get started. Why not Cam Talbot? Why not just see what's out? Like, I'm sure they looked around the league at some other goalies too, but it seemed like Tristan Jarry was the guy for a while, because they both needed to change of pace. Why not Cam Talbot? Why not bring him back and give him the chance to finish what he started in 2017 with a team that he's already played for, like with a defense that he knows how to play in front of, or they play behind? I just don't understand. Wow. Cam Talbot is the best available candidate for a goalie out there for Edmonton, and never even seemed like that was an option.
You think there's some sour grapes there?
Because
it seemed like he left town, and it was a mutual parting of ways that both parties agreed to, and they were happy to do it. So I don't know if, again, we don't know, but
right?
Yeah,
it was Cam Talbot for Mike Smith, and the management group that did that trade is long gone, but the players are still there, and the players probably didn't love that move when it happened.
I wouldn't think so.
I can't imagine that was the Cam Talbot is a great dude. He is a stand-up guy. Mike Smith, I'm not going to disparage the man, but he didn't walk in with sunshine and rainbows. He wasn't going out to lunch with the guys, right away. He was probably coming in as the grizzled veteran who's won before, who can tell you what to do. And then he flaunted that. But he also, on the same token, in the same thing, would turn around and turn the puck over while he's 40 feet away from the goal and get scored on. So, the players probably didn't love that vibe.
No.
Sorry. I just the goaltending thing has got me fired up right now. And I hope Tristan Jarry is like the answer. Of course I do, but I'm his biggest supporter.
I'll tell you one thing that Tristan Jarry did last night that I was not prepared for, and I was like, what the hell? He plays the puck. Like I don't think I've ever seen, like, he passed the puck a couple of times, like up to somebody at the blue line or whatever. And I was like, oh, that's something Skinner doesn't do. And I remember, who was it that was our goaltender that was so bad at it? And it would just...
Mikko Koskinen.
Yes, Koskinen.
Tommy Sala was pretty bad at it too.
Koskinen was, it was Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, same way it was Jack Campbell, Stuart Skinner, same way it could be what we were talking about, the cyclical nature. But Mikko Koskinen, he tried to do all the things that Mike Smith did to get looks. And it wasn't great. He wasn't great at it.
Yeah, we're still paying for Campbell, aren't we? Isn't he still on the...
Yeah. We pay for Campbell, let me see, I think till
2.3.
20, where is it? Yeah, we're paid 2.3 this year, 2.6 next year, 27, 28 through 29, 30 is 1.5. So that's, ouch. That's a bad one.
Hello, everybody. This is Slapstick Decals and Stickers, a proud sponsor of the Hoagie and Grinder podcast. Get at us for your decals, stickers, banners, and more. You can reach us on Facebook or call us at 403-505-9693. Keep slapping.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but it'll be interesting to see what goes on there. You know what? Elliot Freeman went out and said that, I don't think that the brass is done. There was rumors that maybe Pickett's the next guy to go, and they were looking at Lyons from Buffalo. I hope not too.
I think Pickett is serviceable backup. I honestly believe Calvin Pickett has earned his spot where he's at, and I think he's liked in the room. And he bailed us out twice in the playoffs. Let's face it. Yeah. He come in and stole the show.
It's really hard to send a backup away that's as endearing and loved by the team as he is. It's really hard to find that backup goalie. So even if he's letting in goals, like, he did show up in the playoffs, and they don't go to the Stanley Cup final without Cal Pickett. So, it's an important distinction, but it is. If they did, it would be Victor Foss, Ilya Bryzgalov all over again. It would just be like, who are these goalies and why? Why is this the thing after so much success with the other guys?
I think the same thing could be said about a certain defenseman that we lost. He did score for us yesterday, but he was on the wrong team. But when Ekholm was injured, during the playoffs, he didn't come back till the Stanley Cup Finals, and I think Stecher was a big part of why we got there, because he was a freaking workhorse out there. That was a guy that I certainly miss, man. I knew somebody was going to take him too because of what he's been doing and whatnot. So, but yeah, we're just coming up here. I just want to get this last little segment in, and then we'll call her a show. Vasily Podkozin, 4th round. We gave up a 4th round pick, which is some draft capital, but I'm okay with this one. I think Vancouver gave up on him a little too soon. But do you guys agree with me? Like, he's playing like he should already be getting his new contract, right? Like his $2.9 million, I believe. Like he is. Him and Draisaitl. Finally, Draisaitl's got somebody that he can have nice things too, and he's got Vasily Podkolzin. And I'll even give Savoy some props too. He's been good on that line too.
Savoy's played well.
Savoy's has been playing well. But I just like Vasily got 2 goals last night in Toronto. You know, and it's just him going to the net, Draisaitl, and they're working well. What are your guys' thoughts on Vasily Podkolzin right now?
He's a hard worker. He's a skater. He's a grinder. There's definitely a appreciation for a player when you get trained into a team that's so tight knit as the Oilers were when that trade happened, and you sort of walk into a room that's well known to each other, and you're a little bit of an odd man out. That has now happened in reverse for Vasily Podkolzin. So he's in that group with Leon Draisaitl, with McDavid, with Rico, with, there's a whole new group of people who are in there learning from him as the Oilers veteran in the room. And so I see that playing out on the ice the way that it probably plays out in the locker room, which is he's leading by example. He's working with Leon Draisaitl, one of the best players in the world, to drive the net, to drive pressure to the goal. And it's like you got to tell these young kids that are in the Oilers roster right now, you got to shoot the puck, you got to follow your shot, you got to finish your check, like all these different things. He was the one being told to do that 2 years ago by, Connor Brown and Warren Fogle, and these guys who are no longer around. So the fact that he gets to be a part, he's in the club now at 2.95, potentially a 30-goal scorer. I mean, that could be a diamond in the rough that the Oilers really need with the challenges, the cap that they have. And kudos to Draisaitl for really facilitating that by saying, put him on my line as much as humanly possible, because I love working with him.
Well, it looks like he's always looking for him.
He's been a real gem this year. I think he's finding his spot with Draisaitl, and I think you're right. Draisaitl's taken him under his wing and said, "Okay, kid, this is what you're gonna do. You want money, you go to work. You want bread, you go to the store. You want goals, you go to the net, and I'm gonna feed you for them." And they've developed some really nice chemistry, and it's nice to see. It's really nice. And the fact, like you say, we only gave up a fourth for this player that's really turning into this gem. I'd say if it continues, we definitely fleeced Vancouver on that.
Yeah, I think
speaking of Vancouver, Kev. Speaking of Vancouver, Quinn Hughes. Let's discuss that. I want to discuss Quinn Hughes. Did
Minnesota ever give a good package for him?
I mean,
I think
to trade your best player in the prime of his career. What is going on in Vancouver? What do they have to change?
I think I know exactly what's going on in Vancouver. They realized that they didn't have a captain. They realized that they don't have a team. They don't have a coach. They don't have a general manager. And they have to have something for tomorrow. And they went out and they tried to bring in anything. They're rebuilding. They're 4 seconds away from announcing a rebuild. It's going to be Brock Besser. It's going to be Thatcher Demko. These two guys that just signed contracts in the offseason to stay on long term. It's going to be Elias Pettersson, certainly. They're going to rebuild with Evander Kane and any number of draft picks that they can put together within this, because they're not coming back. They're not St. Louis. Somebody said they're the St. Louis Blues of 2020, of 2019. I wish I could just look you in the face while you try to say that, but
not anymore.
This team is not at all that. And Quinn Hughes, you just look at historically what he's had to deal with as a player. He's not the vocal guy that you want leading your team. And I don't think it's a bad. You watch the documentary, the Amazon Prime series that they did for the playoffs 2 years ago. He's a quiet voice, and he's got JT Miller and Elias Pettersson pissing contest going on in the locker room, and he doesn't know what to do about that. He can't stop that. And then you got Rick Tocchet trying to tell him to beef himself up. I mean, it's not a good situation. It's not a good fit. It's not a good dynamic within any of that. And that was his first impression as a leader. He was told from the very beginning he was supposed to lead a group of guys that didn't want to be led by a team who didn't have the capability to lead, and they couldn't do enough on the ice to make it make sense. So Quinn Hughes, I said this, Kev, if you remember in my broadcast in the offseason, If the Vancouver Canucks struggle within the first 4 months of the season,
Yeah.
Quinn Hughes is getting traded. I think it's New Jersey, but now it makes sense that he doesn't want to put his brother in a bad spot in New Jersey by getting traded there. So he's going to sign long-term in Minnesota, and Minnesota found their Cale Makar. Minnesota's building their Colorado Avalanche with their Nate McKinnon and their Cale Makar with their Kaprizov and their Quinn Hughes. Now, I can't say that Billy Guerin knows exactly what he's doing with that. He's R&D on what they're doing in Colorado. It's rip it off and do it yourself in Minnesota right now. And you got to justify that $18 million contract or whatever it was you gave Kaprizov, because doing it without having that backstop on defense is not an option. And then you got the St. Paul too. That Minnesota, watch out for Minnesota right now.
Oh yeah, they're gonna be something.
Maybe they won't be boring. God,
I wish they'd be a little more
boring.
I wish they'd be a little more boring when they play the Oilers.
God, I was like watching the TV and I just went into zombie mode. I was like, it was such a
1-0 loss.
Yeah,
that's a tough one. It's a tough one to watch.
Well, I mean, you could have a really good 1-0 game, but that game was just, it was boring. Like the Tampa Bay game, the 1-0 Tampa Bay game was a good game, but
sure.
The Minnesota, no, I've never been a fan of watching Minnesota. I don't know why.
I think the other thing too is, and I remember I mentioned this to you, JT, and and you just shook your head at my question. You're like, no, that's not what would happen. But I mentioned it to Matt, and I kind of want you to explain why you did a little bit, but you have to answer so many of your questions that are coming at you. But you don't think that at the time, and I agree with you now, but we would never have drafted Jesper Wallstedt?
No.
No. And the reason I shake my head at that question, and the reason I hate talking about this so much, is because it's like hindsight is 2020. Mm-hmm. Goalie hindsight, non-existent. How can you possibly predict anything? You could literally say that there's Oilers players that are playing in Finland right now who could probably be winning a Stanley Cup on an NHL roster if they were developed by somebody else.
Yeah.
Goaltenders are so bizarre because you can go find them in Europe and you can bring them in. You can go find them in the minors playing as an 8.56 as Connor Ingram is. You bring him up and he might be a 9-1 NHL goalie. It's just about your system. It's about your players to support. It's the coaching. It's the competition. It's a perfect chemistry of ingredients. And what the Oilers needed in that draft class was not a goalie. They had two developing goalies that they were working with that neither one of them are still here. So, where the St. Paul Wall would be right now if he was drafted by the Oilers in 2019? He'd probably be in frickin' Pittsburgh, and we'd have Tristan Jarry replacing him. Like that, it's probably how that would have gone down. So, how many times have we seen that development story with Oilers goalies?
Yep.
And Dustin Schwartz would probably still be here because he wouldn't be as bad as it was, right? So,
well, Matt said that
it's just it's such a like what do you call it, a Mad Lib of like insert this goalie into this team in this year, and it's a totally different scenario. There's Hall of Fame goalies that don't exist unless they play for the team they play for.
Well, you know what, JT, I just want to say thank you very much for giving us your time today. You got a wicked mind for the game. I hope that you would come on again maybe in the future. But really, really appreciate you coming on. Listen, folks, that's going to be the end of our show. I'm going to have to give a shout out to these guys here. This is Slapstick Decals and Stickers. We didn't mention it at the beginning of the show because I was too excited because JT's here. But we are sponsored by Slapstick Decal and Stickers. Get at them for all your decals and sticker needs. You can find them on Facebook or give them a call at 403-505-9693. Guys, thanks so much for being here. Other than that, keep your stick on the ice.
Pleasure's all mine.